Patrick, anything you watched over the Thanksgiving break with your family or anything like that?
We all went to go see Wicked, which is not on a television screen, although my children, since seeing it, have constantly asked, like, how do we watch this on TV? I'm like, I'm not gonna find a cam rip for my children to watch Wicked at home. So unfortunately,
now you've developed a sense of honor.
I did think about it
and
though.
legality.
I did think about it, but I wouldn't even know how to do that. I'm far beyond my Napster days. I was like, I don't even know where you would acquire such a thing anymore.
I will say I am quite discouraged and upset by how normalized the cam stuff has become. Like when I look at TikTok, for instance, like a lot of commentary on Wicked, tons of people just using cam footage. For those who don't know what cam footage is, it's basically footage that someone made of a movie that's playing on a movie screen in theaters, using a camera in the theater. So they record like a copy in the theater. And Patrick Klepek, when I was growing up, this was the pure provenance of degenerates. Like that would do that. Like literally back then, you would need to acquire like a physical camcorder. You would need to like buy a physical camcorder and like put it on your person or have a little like monopod or whatever the hell. And it would emit a light and you'd have to like tape it up and you'd have to make sure no one saw that shit. This was when movie theaters were well funded and they could have ushers and stuff like that, like watching and potentially catch you. And you could buy these. You would download these cams off of very sketchy websites, or you would buy them off of DVDs being sold on the sidewalk in Chinatown.
I was going to say that is my distinctive memory of one time just going, how could you even buy this? Paying a couple of dollars for it, sticking in the DVD player and going, oh, someone pointing a camera at a screen. Now I understand why I could buy this.
The thing is, when you used to buy them from the DVD Chinatown, like the box art they would use would look like really nice. You know what I'm saying? Like they would use it would make it look like super legit. And so you're like, oh wow, this is so cool. I have this movie that's in theater. You put it home on the DVD. It's like the worst video and audio quality imaginable. Of course, nowadays, everyone has a cam, quote unquote cam, in their pocket, capable of far more than what those camcorders were back then. And sad. So like, okay, you used to need to be like a degenerate to like make and acquire these in the past. Now it's become normalized. But Patrick, the pendulum has swung too far in the opposite direction. Right? like now everyone thinks it's okay. And that's just like, I don't think that is cool for people to be like recording things off of screens and thinking like, oh, it's completely acceptable that I'm just using this footage from a phone that was recording a movie off a screen in theaters right now. Patrick Klepek, what say you?
It does, like, with Wicked, in around the holidays, they're going to have these sing-along versions, which is like a response to, like, hey, like, be respectful of other folks when the movie is coming out. Maybe most people or a lot of people are not going to be familiar with the music and just want to enjoy it like as a movie that has music in it. But then, hey, come back a month later. We'll take your money. Whatever you want to do. You want to scream at the screen? Like have at it. I mean, my wife is going with a friend to one of those because they're giant fans of the musical and want to go see it a second time. And with a bunch of people who have no shame and no judgment for one another. And I respect it. But maybe where this is trending is there'll be cam showings, like, hey, come here, take your phone out, like make your little TikToks, like, but do it all. Could we just like shove them all in one room? Like,
we need to silo all these people into like one screening. And potentially lock the exits as well.
Yes.
I concur. Except your wife. I hope nothing bad happens to your wife because she's a lovely person.
Well, she's going to pay money to specifically go to a screening that is allowing this. There was a moment growing up. There was an old video game that came out in the early 2000s called Omicron: The Nomad Soul. David Bowie, if you'll remember, was a huge pro-technology guy, like early embracement of the internet and other forms of technology. And he also thought video games were really interesting. And so he partnered with if you're into video games, you know the name David Cage. Back when he was an unknown sort of game designer, he made an early kind of cyberpunk future adventure game called Omicron: The Nomad Soul, in which David Bowie was a prime character. He plays sort of a hologram character, if I recall correctly, and he made a bunch of original music for the game. And I early in my career, got a lot of games for free, and it was like very like novel back then. Like, wow, like I'm 16 and getting just these games that show up in the mail. And alongside a copy of the game was like an album of music from David Bowie. And we put this in, and we're like, who's this guy? And like looked him up on the earlier net. It's like Ziggy Stardust. Like, what? Like, who is this person? And we started listening to David Bowie ironically, and then we were listening to it a little too often for it to be ironic anymore. And then we all just admitted, I think we really like David Bowie, and like started listening to a bunch of his music. And around that same time, the movie Zoolander comes out, and we find out that David Bowie is going to have a cameo in this movie. And the digital camera I had at the time, this is only just going to fuel David's resentment for degenerate behavior that I have exhibited over the course of my lifetime. Now I didn't do this, but I was in presence of it and applauded what occurred next. But I had a
so in a way you did it. In a way,
what was the old digital camera that you put a floppy disk in? Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Oh wow, Jesus, no, I don't know what that is at all.
No, it was one of the earliest digital cameras you could get. It was like a precursor to one of the more popular early digital cameras.
Was it a Sony FD Mavica?
Mavica was and that comes before the more popular one that went kind of mainstream, the Sony CyberShot, which is more of a vertical or horizontal camera that had a big this thing.
So your friend had a Sony Mavica.
No, I had a Sony Mavica.
Oh, you had a Sony Mavica.
And you would put a huge floppy disk, and if you've never experienced a floppy disk before,
maybe you should explain what a floppy disk is for people who don't know. It's basically like an ancient version of a hard drive.
So yes, it's a portal. If you'd imagine the brick that you have to charge like a MacBook, right? Like if you imagine that size, it was bigger. It was a little bit bigger than that. But if you imagine that shape, but imagine extremely thin, and that's what you would install software on computers, and it was an early form of like saving files, storage, and portability. Yeah. And the Sony Mavica, you would put these giant floppy disks in, and when you would click like to take a photo, and it would like these were like mechanical, like saved, like you would hear like made a noise as you were taking the photo, but it had a flash, and it took digital pictures as archaic and ugly as they were back then. I'm sure they were like 320 by 240.
For those who are curious, like a floppy disk could store maximum around 1.5 megabytes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Ridiculous stuff.
1.5 megabytes. My current computer, it has a hard drive that's 4 terabytes. Right. Yes. So it's like 4,000 gigabytes, and a gigabyte is 1,000 megabytes. Mm-hmm. So it can store 4 million times the size, roughly, right? 3.8 or whatever. Roughly the size, 4 million times the size of a floppy disk, right?
And they constantly failed. They were a novel and useful thing, but like frequently anyway. So it's a loud, obnoxious digital camera, but was novel because it was one of the first ones that like consumers could use. And so we knew that David Bowie was going to be in the movie, and my friend, we were like, let's bring the digital camera. Like, it'd be really funny to take a picture of David Bowie, like during the cameo part. So we're sitting up like really near the front, and my friend forgot the flash was on, stands up, and my entire row of friends, there's like 8 of us, we all yell, David Bowie! And then like he takes the picture, and then the flash goes off and fills the entire theater.
Oh my God.
As it occurs. But it was such an early period of digital cameras that I don't think anyone really knew like what was going on. Like we didn't have cell phones or anything like that. And so it just sort of occurred. We sat back down. No usher came out. I think we just caused confusion in the theater, and then we just quiet and laughed through the rest of the movie. But my friend still has it somewhere. Like he saved it through the ages. Occasionally he'll text me. He's like, hey, here's that picture we took of David Bowie in the movie theater with your Sony Mavica when we were 15 or whatever. Mm-hmm, and that was at this point, 25 years ago.
Well, people who record the entire movie Wicked are the modern day Sony Mavica users. Is what I have to say about that.
Well, was a cool camera.
Shame on you for pirating the movie, but also slightly less, but not that much less shame on you for using pirated portions of the movie in your TikToks and such and normalizing this behavior. I'm not a fan at all. It sounds like Patrick is a fan, and that's why
I know.
we disagree.
It's just happening. I'm just saying we should silo them. Have your own screening.
Have your own screening where you can take your little pictures and record your little videos, and please don't do it in a normal screening. I mean, I do. There have been some pieces that have come out. A colleague of mine, Matt Goldberg, wrote a piece about this and how like I think there has been an increase in this kind of behavior, right? Like I think post-pandemic there is this kind of increase of this like very individualistic behavior. We see it in roads, we see it on airplanes, we see it in movie theaters. So people just being like, I don't give an F what other people think. I'm just going to do the thing that feels most comfortable for me. You know, like whether that's recording an entire movie on my iPhone or arguing with a flight attendant about the food or whatever it is. It does feel like we have become more individualistic over the course of the last few years. Patrick Klepek, am I imagining things?
You're not imagining things, but also the studios aren't going to stop it because it's marketing.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, and the inconvenience that it might have.
Yeah, we haven't heard any stories of them like going after anyone, for instance. So,
they won't. Yeah. They won't. I mean, you know, the
PR would be so bad of them going after like hardcore fans of the thing, right?
Yeah, I think most people can understand like, yeah, you shouldn't record a whole movie and, you know, share it online. But I think where the culture is at, like, you know, if you're not bothered, you know, well, again, it is bothersome, but I think they're not going to go after, you know, do takedowns on stuff like this in TikTok and other places. And like, it was one thing when it's like, I think people often look at the origin moment for this. Not that it hasn't happened before, but it's obviously, you know, Avengers Endgame and like the sequence at the end of that film. Like there's like, it was a very famous clip that went around.
A viral clip of the portals moment in Avengers Endgame, and that's been spread all over the internet.
I loved watching that clip. Like I loved watching.
A great clip.
I loved being in. It's one of my favorite movie theater experiences. Was like being in for that. Like I loved watching the clip because it took me back to like, yeah, that was pretty cool to be in the movie theater with a bunch of people when that happened. And I think people set that aside because, well, I think everyone just sort of agreed, like you, like, you know what, that was pretty cool, like what I happened in the movie, and it was really enhanced by being around other people. And the way the clip worked was it took you back to that place, and so you had an emotionally positive moment in the theater that was then reinforced by the clip. I think what's happening here is a bunch of like out of like separate from emotional context, selfish, individualistic stuff that is happening. That is alongside the culture in terms of what things like TikTok and Instagram are pushing people towards. And there's way less like, that was a cool moment that I'm now getting to be nostalgic about because I saw it shared. Now it just feels like, well, you're being selfish to create. You can't just watch a movie. You have to make content
right
while you're doing it. And I think that's where a lot of the new tension lies. But I don't expect it to, unfortunately, I don't expect it to go away, become less popular, or be told to stop by theaters or studios.
The only thing we can do here on Decoding TV is rage against the dying of manners in public, folks. And that's exactly what we're doing here with this segment. Hey everyone, David Chen here. Thank you so much for watching that video from Decoding TV. If you want to get an audio version of the show, all you got to do is go to podcast.decodingtv.com. And if you want to support what we do, get ad-free episodes of the podcast and also bonus episodes of the podcast, go to decodingtv.com and become a paid member. Of course, you can also like and subscribe for more. We appreciate it. Thanks. See you later.